Thanks, Christophe. I appreciate that immensely. This is actually the most fun part of the presentation, I think. The first cheese we're going to start with is called Cello Copper Kettle. As I mentioned early on, we are the only manufacturer in the United States to use exclusively copper vats. This particular cheese is very special from a whole lot of perspectives, and from a personal perspective, the reason that I joined Arthur Schuman was because of our copper kettle parm. In my estimation, this is the finest domestic Parmesan made to kind of capitalize on what Christophe was saying. And if you could leave that slide up for just 1 second, I would appreciate it. In talking about the crystals, if you look closely at the picture, you can see the crystallization actually occurring in this cheese. What makes this cheese so unique compared to any other domestic Parmesan out there, when you look at the rind of this cheese, it's got a very, very deep, almost caramel color. The interior of the cheese is very light, almost straw color, which is very reminiscent of what Parmesan should be. What makes this cheese so different than anything out there is that when we manufacture this in the copper vat, I'm going to use the term reaction, even though Christophe's going to be mad at me for using that term, where the milk and the copper actually interact, and you get two results from that manufacturing process. The first result is you get this beautiful, deep colored rind, like I said, this caramel color. And the second thing you get is you get a very, very sweet, almost caramel flavor on the backside of this as you finish chewing on the cheese. Like all Parmesans, you should get an apple or crushed apple flavor up front. You should get a really nice, clean Parmesan flavor through the middle. What separates this from every other domestic Parmesan out there is that you get a caramel note on the backside. It's very unique. I hate to admit it, but I do have a very sweet palate. And for somebody like me, this cheese meets everything you can possibly imagine from enjoying a Parmesan cheese. So this cheese pairs well with just about anything. From a wine perspective, it pairs well with Chardonnay or a heavy red like a Malbec. Beers, it pairs very, very nicely with heavier beers. So porters, cream ales, anything along that line, a Guinness if you're so inclined. And as far as food, we suggest honey or figs, candied nuts, those type of things. One of my favorite things to do, and please take this with a grain of salt, but I strongly encourage you to try it. One of the things that I like to do is I like to take a really, really high quality vanilla bean ice cream. And bean is important in this because it gives you the true vanilla flavor. But what I like to do is I like to take the copper kettle, grate it over the top of vanilla ice cream, just a little bit of balsamic vinegar, and it is heaven on earth. So you're getting a lot of dairy in that, but the acidity from the vinegar with the cheese and with the ice cream gives a just amazing flavor profile. I've served it to guests and everybody kind of looks at me and scratches their head, but once they actually taste it, they all see what I'm talking about. This cheese, I like to explain to people, it's very similar to Grana Padano, another Italian cheese. This is more a domestic version of it. And the difference between the two cheeses really is that in Italy, they use open vats, which is what we showed in the pictures earlier. Because of some of the regulations in the United States, we actually use sealed vats for this. But the important comment is that it is in copper. And like I said in the beginning, we're the only ones that use copper. This is a huge differentiation point for us. And it's something that we're very proud of. And it gives our cheeses flavors and profiles that nobody else in the industry can match.
I just wanted to say that this particular Parmesan is just has a nice little bit of tanginess to it, which really lends itself to a lot, like you said, about being able to pair. My suggestion, Bonnie's Jams does a nut. There are actually nuts in here and honey, and there's the honey, the nuts flavor really brings out more of the butter flavor, and it tones down a little bit of the tanginess. And I paired it up with a brown ale. like you suggested, something a little dark.
Yep, and what you find with this particular cheese is that there are many, many things that it pairs well with. You know, most people just grate it over their pasta and that's it. But I can tell you that just about anything you pair with this that's got a deeper, richer flavor is going to be an excellent accompaniment to this cheese. It is in stores now. We actually make, I think it's 9 different flavors of our hand rubbed fontinas. Uh, each one is very unique. And just so there's kind of an understanding, we do a harissa, which is a West African spice blend. We do an Italian spice blend. We do a dill, a mustard,
Mayan cocoa.
Mayan cocoa, thanks, Christophe. We do a hibiscus and bergamot tea. The goal of this cheese and this style of cheese in particular is to give people different flavor profiles, different perspectives that you really wouldn't think about. And the really interesting thing about this cheese is it's so unique compared to anything else that's out there. So the thing that I'm always most impressed with about this cheese is the rub is actually hand applied to the cheese. So we actually have a room at Lake Country Dairy that is sealed off. You pretty much need an act of Congress to get in there. But the bottom line is that we take special pride in making this cheese. Each wheel is hand rubbed. It's then bagged and sealed, where it sits for, depending on the spice rub, anywhere from 30 to 45 days. That allows the rubs to soak into the rind a little bit. So ultimately, when you bite into the cheese, you get flavor throughout the cheese. One of the things that we're working on right now is the ability to either cube or shred the wheel of Fontal, take that same spice blend, put it into a tumbler so the cheese gets completely coated. And the goal here is to be able to offer different opportunities for people as far as entertaining options. So the pumpkin spice, very similar to the copper kettle, works really well with dark beers. So, I mentioned Guinness. If I do drink, it's actually one of my favorite things to drink. But stouts work very well with it. Anything more along the line of the deep dark beers. As far as wines go, Pinot Noirs are a really, really nice accompaniment to it. But it's like anything else, taste is subjective. And if you like something with it, it's a good pairing. Foods, this is kind of standalone. I mean, it works really well with peanut butter or a Bloody Mary type flavoring. But this is one of those cheeses where the flavor profile is so unique. It's not strong, but it's got enough flavor where you don't really need something to offset it or to highlight it. It's just a really, really nice, clean cheese, and it is available now basically through the end of the year. So look for your local retailer and see if you can find it. Michael?
I just wanted to say that the balance of the flavors are really well done. You know, it's not overly pumpkin. There's the spices are really well balanced in there. I paired this up with a Vermont product, Fat Toad Farm. Their caramel with a little bit of cinnamon in it. It's got cinnamon sticks, so it kind of gives it a kind of a pie-ish. So I added a Effie's oat cake to it to give it some more structure, and it tastes a lot like you're having a pie, a pumpkin pie. So it's really just really interesting to be able to have. I think it's a great cheese to have for dessert. You don't even have to do any baking. You just bring this cheese out with a couple little things. And again, the Maduro Brown, the Cigar City, nice little simple, easy way to go.
Great suggestions, Michael. Thanks for that. I hadn't thought about the Effies, but that now that you've said it, that does make an outstanding combination. So the last cheese that I'm going to talk about is a cheese that we call Altu. So at Lake Country Dairy, we make 3 very specific Alpine style cheeses. The first one is called Deli. That's more of a raclette style cheese. The next one we make is called Manto. Manto is reminiscent of French Abondance. And the last one we make is Altu. And Altu is basically our version of Gruyere. This is a wonderful cheese, aged a minimum of 180 days. It has a nice fruity flavor up front with an earthy, nutty finish. I'm more of the opinion that I actually pick up the fruit first, and then almost immediately I get that earthy, nutty, but it goes together really, really well, and it's a really clean cheese. The reason that I personally like this one, 2 reasons actually. One, the first is because we don't have that nasty tariff that goes on with cheeses that come over from Europe, and the ability for the governments to take wonderful cheese and make it really, really expensive is kind of a shame in a lot of ways, but this cheese you're allowed to, because it's domestic, we get around that. And the second thing is this allows us to make a cheese that we don't call Gruyere, but is very comparable to any type of Swiss Gruyere. Again, this cheese pairs really well with a Chardonnay or a Cabernet. That's the nice thing about our cheeses. They're just not geared to one flavor profile. So if you're a white drinker or a red drinker, don't be shy. The deeper and the heavier the red that you're drinking, it will offset this cheese very, very nicely. Again, as far as beers go, we've talked a lot about beers and most of them being dark today, but this also pairs well with another really great beer out of San Francisco that I am partial to, which is Anchor Steam. So it's not as heavy, but it's kind of a middle of the road depth of color beer that pairs very, very nicely with this. And then as far as food goes, sky's the limit here. We talk about French onion soup and grilled cheese, that type of thing. But this cheese is amazing for fondue. It's amazing for grilled cheese, for mac and cheese. Pretty much anything you can think of. It slices really nicely, so you can just have it as simple as a slice of cheese on a sandwich. The nice thing about this is most Gruyères that come from Switzerland or Swiss style cheeses come in 80-pound wheels. This is wonderful from the perspective that it's only a 22-pound wheel, and you don't have to buy an enormous amount of cheese to put it in the store and then hope that you sell through it before it starts to get its cracks and things like that. So I'm not exactly sure what Michael has paired with this. I'm looking forward to finding out, because so far I've learned a few things that I hadn't thought about before. So Michael?
Well, this has got such great nuttiness to it. It's almost a caramelized butter that goes with it. So, and the texture on here, this is so creamy for a Gruyere style. It's magnificent. So I went with, again, the Fat Toad Farm. This time, instead of cinnamon, it is their maple. And so bringing a lot of that maple flavor with the nuttiness here does really well. And then I went with a Rustic Bakery. their crisp, which is apricot. It's got cocoa and almond to it, so it gives it a little bit of crunchiness. And staying with the Maduro brown, I think that works really well as well.
Well, Michael, I just want to add, I mean, you choose the best caramel in the country, fatted, you know, like caramels. I mean, you can't go wrong with that caramel. It's just fantastic. And I'm not saying that because I live in Vermont. I love that product. So
it's really nice because that caramel that comes across really just blends really well with the butters and the cheese. But then adding that maple and adding that cinnamon really takes that pumpkin spice to a pumpkin pie with the Effie. So you really taste that. I mean, I think that you can skip doing a pumpkin pie and just serve that, and you're going to be good for Thanksgiving dinner. Or
no, look, I mean, I think just to, you know, like to add on, you know, like on your comments and Jim's comments. I mean, I think what's the most important is just to enjoy the moment, you know, like appreciate the cheese you eat on a daily basis. I mean, there is so much effort to it. Life is so stressful. Just pause, you know, like enjoy, you know, like a nice drink with, you know, like your favorite cheese, enjoy some nice condiments, experience. It doesn't cost a fortune, and then your mind can still travel thousands of miles. So that's the beauty of, you know, like eating and enjoying good food.
Absolutely. So is there anything else you guys would like to add?
No, I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to speak about our company, our plants, our people. I think we're a unique group, all passionate and really dedicated to our craft. So we have a lot of people working weekends at night, and that success comes from all of us. So that's fantastic. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about our operations.
That's great. It was really fun listening to you guys. Anything else? All right. Okay. Well, again, I thank you very much for taking the time. It was magnificent. The cheeses, exceptional. So it was a lot of fun there. And I want to thank you again for taking the time with us and being able to do that. So Lauren, if you could stick around for just a minute, everybody else, you guys are all set. And again, thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Michael.
you, guys.
All right.
Thanks. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you for taking the time to watch this segment. I hope you enjoyed the stories along with all the cheeses that we tasted today. You can find this on Michael Landis Cheese on YouTube. You can also find more information on michaellandischeese.com.